Japanese animation is a global phenomenon.
Wow!
It's different from American things, which is nice because we see that all the time. It's a breath of fresh air.
Attracting passionate fans around the world, the market in Japan alone is worth more than $12 billion. And it all started 50 years ago in the United States.
Ray, please listen to me. Right now your daughter Jules is inside our rocket. Here, you monster!
Viewer ratings for the TV show Astro Boy topped 30% in the US. The hero was unique, a robot with a human heart. The stories were engaging too. It all added up to a huge success.
Tezuka will go down in American history, has gone down, as the father of this new form of children's programming, which made the American people change their production. He revolutionized it. He was a genius.
Astro Boy's creator Osamu Tezuka was a renowned manga cartoon artist. But he made animation shows as well, always pushing the frontiers of creative expression. Astro Boy was Japan's first TV animation series run in 30-minute episodes. Jungle Emperor Leo was the first full-color animation series in the country. Tezuka produced more than 60 works of animation, or anime.
日本のアニメの代表として日本のアニメの良さみたいなものをね、海外に伝えるための先兵になりたいわけだ。
Tezuka launched his own animation studio. It nurtured many of Japan's leading talents in anime creation.
Ever since Astro Boy, Japanese animation creators have become quite versatile. They can turn any subject or story into anime. No one could work as hard as Osamu Tezuka. In this line of work, we must strive to make something better than his creation. I always kept that in mind while working on a huge robot series.
Osamu Tezuka revolutionized Japanese animation.
先生、ここのカレーうまいっすね。
最高なんだここの。
いや、いいとこ見つけましたね。
But at first, he faced one hurdle after another.
僕、アニメーションやりますよ。
アニメーションなんてやってる暇ないでしょ。
お金ものすごいかかるの知らないんですか？
僕思ってるんですよ。
集めるだけで大変なんだから。できませんよ。
いや、できます。僕面白いアニメ必ず作ってみせますよ。
Osamu Tezuka explored new possibilities of animation. We'll trace the path of his dreams and struggles. In 1962, Osamu Tezuka established Mushi Production using his own money. Stored in this building is something very special, the birth of Japanese TV animation. It's a huge collection of film, the entire 193 episodes of Astro Boy. No one had dared to produce an anime TV series with a 30-minute episode every week. What drove Tezuka to take on such a challenge? He first encountered animation as a boy. His father introduced him to the world of Disney using a home projector.
With a smile and a song. With a smile and a song. With a
Tezuka was mesmerized by the smooth, fluid movement of the pictures and the rich, mellifluous music. The attraction kept growing even after he became a well-known manga artist after the end of World War II.
After Snow White was released, I spent all my savings in no time. I probably saw it about 50 times. Bambi I watched over 80 times. Once I'd memorized all the scenes, I looked at other people in the audience. Seeing them laugh and cry made me happy as if they were my own audience.
In 1958, Tezuka, now a leading manga artist, was presented with the opportunity of a lifetime. Toei Animation was aiming to become the Disney of Asia. Studio officials told Tezuka they wanted to make a movie based on his manga about Son Goku, the Monkey King. Figuring this would be a golden chance to learn about animation, he volunteered to join the production. But Tezuka had never worked on a studio anime before or any project in a team setting. People complained he didn't keep his word and he wasn't cooperative. He also butted heads with other team members about the storyline. The movie depicted the adventure of the Monkey King, traveling with a Buddhist monk to India. Tezuka wanted to end the last scene with the death of the heroine. But others were strongly against the idea.
I told Mr. Tezuka we couldn't possibly have an ending that would leave the hero's girlfriend dead, because that would have made children cry as they left the theaters. We didn't want that. He was disappointed. He said he could have made an animation movie with a hugely tragic ending, something Disney hadn't done before.
In the end, Tezuka's suggestion was rejected. The story had a happy ending.
The first thing I learned at Toei is how difficult it is to work in a team, not how to make a movie. I had many arguments and got yelled at. Lack of communication was a problem too. Working with people really was difficult.
It was all a huge setback for the man dubbed a manga genius. Tezuka made a decision. He was going to create his own animation in his own way. The year after the Monkey King movie was released, aged 32, he launched a studio named Tezuka Osamu Productions Animation Division. He paid for all the costs, from construction and equipment to wages. The staff was young, and their first work was ambitious, exploring new possibilities for anime. The main characters are posters on a street corner. An experimental work based on static objects. This was uniquely Tezuka and a far cry from the Disney animation he so admired.
Animation had become something that required a lot of money, time, and manpower. An unreachable art above the clouds, and I didn't like it. I tried to bring it down to earth and turn it into popular art form that all kinds of people could enjoy.
Eiichi Yamamoto was one of the original members of the production team. He later directed Space Battleship Yamato. Yamamoto was worried. They might spend more than a year making an anime film. But he wondered how many people would actually watch something created by a small independent production house. At the time, short TV animation programs from the US, like Popeye the Sailor Man, were all the rage in Japan. Yamamoto thought Astro Boy would make a worthy opponent. Tezuka's long-running manga series was extremely popular. Yamamoto and his colleagues suggested to Tezuka that they turn Astro Boy into TV animation. The boss was on the same page. He was excited just imagining how Astro Boy would leap from two-dimensional manga to the TV screen, capturing the hearts of children.
Osamu Tezuka wanted to be the best in everything he did. I might think, why not number 2? But he wouldn't be satisfied with second place. He had to aim for a home run every time he was at bat.
In 1962, the studio was completed. Tezuka changed the company name to Mushi Production. He started making a pilot for Astro Boy, though he didn't know if any TV station would be willing to broadcast it. Back then, no one else was daring enough to try making a 30-minute animation episode every week. But Tezuka had a plan. Gisaburo Sugi had left Toei Animation to work for Mushi Production. On the day he joined the Astro Boy team, there wasn't even a script yet. Tezuka just gave him a pencil-drawn picture with a simple instruction written on it.
ぎっちゃん、これよろしく。
はい。アトム、驚く。3秒か。
ぎっちゃん、何やってるんですか？
アトムがあっと驚くんですよね。
うん。
だからこう驚く前の表情が必要だと思うんです。
いや、驚く前なんかいらないんです。
東映ではそうしてましたけど。
いや、いいんです。
じゃあ汗でもたらっと流しましょうかね。
いや、いいんです。
じゃあどこを動かしましょうか。
ぎっちゃん、アトムの目だけ動かせばいいんです。目だけパチパチっと 2,3 回やればそれで十分です。
先生、それじゃアニメーションになりません。
いやいや、これアニメーションでなくテレビアニメなんです。
For animation director Sugi, this was his first lesson on Tezuka's method of making TV anime.
Here are the eyes. You can close them, just the eyes, using 2 or 3 sheets of pictures. And you can do the same with the mouth. You can open the mouth and close it like this. When Astro Boy is talking, for instance, you don't need to move his body, like in Disney animation. If he's speaking for 3 seconds, let him blink his eyes once, and that's enough movement for children. That's the basic stance behind Tezuka's way of making animation.
The Disney method is called full animation, using 24 pictures per second. But Tezuka used what's called limited animation to reduce the number of pictures to only 8 per second.
Disney and other studios worldwide figured constant movement of the images was key to creating fun animation works, be it fantasy or adventure stories. That was their basic thinking. But Tezuka was different. He would just decide which work to make into animation and then try to figure out how to do it. Methodology came second for him. I remember thinking, if this works, we can make anime out of all kinds of material. That was my reaction at the time.
The pilot was finished in September 1962. Tokyo-based Fuji Television offered to air it, and a meeting was held to negotiate a price. The broadcasters said it would pay over $3,300 per episode. But Tezuka surprised everyone.
$1,500 per episode would do.
Mr. Tezuka went ahead and sold Astro Boy at that price to Fuji Television. No other studio would go that low. It seems he wanted Mushi Production to monopolize the market.
Astro Boy was to be aired for 30 minutes every week, but it didn't take long for the production team to realize what they had signed up for. It was much harder than expected to keep up with the schedule, even with the Tezuka method.
Our week of hell was what we called each cycle. Once we started drawing, we never left the desk, except for meals and toilet breaks. Otherwise, we wouldn't make the deadline. Mr. Tezuka was drawing manga every single day. On top of that, he checked all the storyboards we'd drawn. Only after he'd checked and revised them could we start drawing all the pictures for the show. A delay by one day would shorten the already hectic week. It really was hard.
The very first episode of Astro Boy was aired in Japan at 6:15 p.m. on January 1st, 1963. The show proved a major success. Its highest viewer rating topped 40%. Astro Boy made his TV debut in Japan's boom period. The economy was growing fast, and so were its exports. Kiyoshi Fujita, then president of an advertising agency, believed Japan could also export animation to the United States.
Let me show you a photo taken during the signing with NBC. This is Mr. Tezuka, and here's the president of NBC's international division. I'm on the left. Mr. Tezuka was there to sign the deal. As you can see, it was a friendly occasion. It marked the beginning of Japanese animation.
At the time, Fujita was promoting a Japanese singer named I. George, trying to win him a chance to perform at Carnegie Hall in New York. Fujita was also eyeing Astro Boy.
I visited Mr. Tezuka and told him I was going to the States for such and such reasons. And I asked him to let me borrow Astro Boy so I could sell it for him. Then he laughed and he said he didn't think anyone would buy it, but he said he liked my passion, and he let me take some film with me.
Fujita visited the 3 major U.S. networks and played the Astro Boy film for them. One of them was NBC, and its subsidiary showed interest. NBC contacted Fred Ladd, saying there's an interesting film he might want to see. Ladd produced dubbed versions of foreign animation and was a leader in his field.
So they showed it to me, and my training is such that I don't need the soundtrack. I can tell, if I see the picture, I can tell you the plot. I know what it is. So all the adults who said, oh, he's only a boy, what does a boy know? The boy's sometimes smarter than the adult. This robot is very, very intelligent. This is Tezuka's genius.
What's going on here? Dr. Elephant! I I know who you men are.
Astro Boy was broadcast by 26 TV stations across the U.S. Viewer ratings exceeded 30%. Astro Boy won a huge following of American children.
When I said we'd export Astro Boy, many people replied, "You can't sell it so easily. And you'll just be a laughingstock." So when we sold it in the US, I was so happy I felt like I was walking on air.
Tezuka had realized his dream of making inroads into the US. When he started in TV anime, profit was not his main concern, but labor and production costs grew faster than expected. He could no longer cover all the expenses with the money he was earning from his manga cartoons. Around this time, companies, impressed by the popularity of the TV series, started showing interest in using Astro Boy for their products. Characters from comic books and TV shows were becoming big business. 20 manufacturers of snacks, toys, and household goods formed a group named the Astro Boy Society. Mushi Production certified legitimate products with a seal of approval to eliminate fake Astro Boy goods. Selling merchandising rights offered a new source of revenue.
これが塗り絵の表紙なんです。
Keisuke Nemoto drew illustrations of Astro Boy for various products.
幼稚園の
Many children at kindergartens loved carrying Astro Boy items when they went on field trips. Character goods were really selling well. And Astro Boy was definitely a huge seller.
Some 100 Astro Boy character goods were sold in 1963 alone, the year the TV series started. Mushi Productions' copyright revenue exceeded $270,000. These new streams of income were beginning to cover a large part of the production costs. Broadcasters and sponsors, realizing the huge commercial potential, started getting into TV anime production. Fuji Television aired the first episode of Tetsujin 28, only 10 months after it launched Astro Boy. And 1 month later, 8-Man debuted on Tokyo Broadcasting System Television, or TBS. These two shows were the work of TCJ, a company that made commercials using animation. Masayasu Sagisu was on the production team.
I was told to find more production staff, so I went to major art universities. Securing team members was part of my job. We gathered aspiring manga artists, about 100 of them, in a hall, and we got them drawing pictures for production right away, training them on the job. Then we'd make adjustments to their work if necessary. We just had to do it. We agreed to make the show, so we really had no choice.
TV stations approached the established Toei Animation about producing this emerging TV anime. But experienced staff who had been working on full animation didn't want to get involved. They said Tezuka's anime was not animation. Then a younger member volunteered on condition he be allowed to do it his way. His story took place in a jungle, an unusual setting at a time when the popularity of science fiction anime was peaking.
We used this technique that generated a lively sense of motion with a limited number of pictures. Say we want to create a scene of burning fire. If we make 5 or so pictures, we can repeat them, varying the order to create complicated motion. In TV anime, you think about how to generate desired effects with the least number of images. That kind of technique could only come from people involved in television.
Following Astro Boy's lead, other Japanese TV anime shows won audiences abroad. Some criticized the mass production, but these shows owe their popularity to Tezuka's groundwork.
People often ask me why I turned Astro Boy into a TV show. Why work so hard to broadcast something that's ill-conceived and poorly made? That's because there was this unknown mountain that was TV animation. So I wanted to pave the way.
The year after the dawn of Japan's TV animation, Tokyo hosted the country's first Olympic Games. Japan was advancing headlong into the era of color television. And the first Japanese TV anime in color was Jungle Emperor Leo, created by Tezuka's Mushi production. It's set in Africa, the story of a lion family in a struggle against humans. It's a signature Tezuka work along with Astro Boy. But the creator had to stay away from the production site. He was a stickler for detail, and staff worried they'd fall behind schedule trying to meet his demands. Mushi Production was betting its future on Jungle Emperor Leo. The production schedule had to be strictly followed if the company was to export Japan's first color TV anime. Eiji Yamamoto served as the show's producer. Tezuka resisted the urge to show up at the studio, but after the program went on air, he was often on the phone to Yamamoto.
Yamamoto-san? いや、困るな。あんな出来じゃ。視聴者はね、僕が作ったと思っちゃうんだよ。ファンはね、アニメがどんな風にできてるか知らないからね。クレジットが他の人の名前になってたからって関係ないんだよ。抗議の手紙いっぱい来てるの見せましょうか？
いや先生ですから。
デパートのお菓子売り場に出来損ないのケーキ並べて、これは修行中の者が作りましたので。で、そんなこと通用しないでしょ？
先生のおっしゃることはわかりますよ。だけど虫プロのスタッフはキャリアが未熟なのも事実で。
我々は今商品を出してるんだし、それは完全でなきゃならないんだ。なんとかしてください。
Mr. Tezuka didn't like being excluded. He didn't mind half-baked shows as long as he was a part of the team making them. Maybe he felt lonely.
But thanks to Tezuka's passion for animation, Jungle Emperor Leo ended up blazing a new trail as well. Tezuka contacted Isao Tomita, a composer who won praise for his work on a popular historical drama series aired by NHK in 1963.
I really wanted to write a score for animation. I love Disney movies.
The first one, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I saw more than 10 times. There wasn't anything like that in Japan at the time. And the music was wonderful. I was just thinking I wanted to create that kind of music. That's when I got a call from Mr. Tezuka.
Tomitaさん、今のテレビアニメの音楽どう思います？僕ね、とってもチャチな音楽だと思うんですよ。あんな音楽でお茶を濁してるようじゃダメだ。ほう。どうですかね、こんな感じは。
チャイコフスキーの交響曲ですか。
まあ
なるほど。この人は僕にディズニーみたいなフルオーケストラの曲を作れというのか。
Tezuka's little performance led to the theme music of Jungle Emperor Leo. Tomita also composed original music for each week's episode. Working with a 25-member orchestra, he synchronized the sounds perfectly with the movements of the animals and people appearing in the show.
I had to punch holes in the film. One hole indicated the first beat. 2 holes meant the second beat. If 1 hole again, that's the third beat. I often stayed up all night doing that. I was like a train station worker whose job it was to punch a hole in passengers' tickets. It took a lot of time. It was nothing like composing music. But still, I saw all that work leading to happiness. I think it was the same with other staff who worked really hard and with enthusiasm for Mr. Tezuka.
The tunes for Jungle Emperor Leo were made into a record, a first for TV anime music. 100,000 records were sold, sparking a trend for TV animation soundtrack albums. The second half of the 1960s was a time of change, as young people began questioning the values of older generations. Many of them were avid readers of weekly comic magazines, giving rise to a new group of popular manga artists. And some of their works were turned into TV anime series. Mushi Production had done well with anime based on Tezuka's stories, but the firm was starting to lose its luster. Then a proposal came about making animation for adults. Tezuka received the request from Nippon Herald Films in 1967. A distributor of foreign movies, Nippon Herald was aiming to create a feature-length animation film and sell it abroad. Advertising manager Masato Hara handled the negotiations with Mushi Production.
Other producers may have thought about making film versions of Astro Boy or Princess Knight. But that's not what Herald executives wanted. They knew they wouldn't be able to outdo Toei Animation or Disney. Something new, something different was their thinking. So they decided to ask Mr. Tezuka to create animation for adults.
At the time, animation films were all family-oriented, whether they were made by Disney or other studios. None of them targeted grown-ups. The challenge of making the first-ever anime for adults lit a creative fire in Tezuka once again.
I want to prove that even adults can appreciate animation's allure and its rich imagery. Yes, I'll try something very erotic.
Tezuka selected Tales from 1001 Nights. He decided to be direct in depicting people's insatiable desires, from love and sexuality to money and power. Tezuka was psyched up about creating the world's first animation for adults, and he kept coming up with all kinds of ideas. Tezuka drew the storyboard himself. He built up a massive story, paying no regard to what it would involve for production staff. The job of directing this work went to Eiichi Yamamoto.
The storyboard Mr. Tezuka gave us was about 5.5 hours long, but there was no way we would make a movie lasting that many hours. He wouldn't make it shorter, though. Asking him to do so would have taken up more time anyway. So we went ahead and cut some parts and then showed it to Mr. Tezuka, saying, "We do it this way." That was much quicker.
This was the first time Mushi production staff had taken on an animated feature film with a runtime exceeding 2 hours. They planned all kinds of innovations, new techniques to combine animation with real-life footage. They also used miniature models. But this resulted in big delays. With a media preview 1 month away, the team had completed only 11 minutes of a film that was supposed to be 2 hours long. Around that time, Tezuka sent for producer Atsushi Tomioka.
Oh, Tommy-san.トミさん、ここからは腹を割って話しましょう。でもここで決めたことは男と男の約束ですから、いいですか？はい。ヘラルドがいつできるんだと気にしています。でもこのありさまです。明日僕がヘラルドに行って納品期日を遅らせてもらえるように交渉しようと思いますが、トミさん、いつになったらクランクアップできますか？返事してくださいよ。
納品期日を半月ほど延ばしてもらって、スタッフを20人ほど私の方に回してもらえればなんとかなると思います。
それで本当に大丈夫なんですね？
まあなんとか。
だったら僕は何としてもその条件で取ってきます。その代わりトミさんも約束の期日には絶対間に合わせてくださいよ。これは男と男の約束ですからね。頭を丸坊主にするくらいじゃ済みませんよ。腹切ってもらいますから。
Mr. Tezuka always wore his heart on his sleeve. He never hid his emotions. He was under the gun, though. He knew he had to do something.
The next day, Tomioka was waiting for Tezuka's return from his negotiations with Herald managers.
Tomi-san, あれね、やっぱりダメでした。
じゃあ、納期はそのまんまなんですか？
あとはやるだけです。
Of course, I was disappointed when he told me that. I was shocked, to be honest. But what was most important was that Osamu Tezuka was completely engrossed in making animation. And he wasn't one to feel any burden or feel sorry about breaking his promise. If he had, he wouldn't have been Osamu Tezuka.
Tezuka joined the production team. All the studio's 250 employees rushed to finish the project with the help of more than 20 third-party production firms. Amid all that,
Mr. Tezuka would do a retake. He shouldn't have been doing that, though, because we were already editing the film. But he'd do a retake and he'd watch it, then he'd do another retake. He just kept making corrections. He wanted to make sure he was satisfied with every single picture on the screen at movie theaters. Mr. Tezuka wouldn't have it any other way. I guess that's the true spirit of an artist, which he made abundantly clear.
After a year and a half in production, 1001 Nights was released on June 14, 1969. The tantalizing, sensual depiction was the work of Gisaburo Sugi. And Tezuka took utmost care with this scene. This film turned out to be a groundbreaking work that completely defied what people had come to expect of animation.
One of the biggest theaters in Tokyo was filled to capacity, and Mr. Tezuka was really happy about that. He'd come and watch it whenever he could take a break from his work. Everyone recognized him, of course, and the girl who was working at the entrance would tell him, "Please, come in, Mr. Tezuka." But he'd say, "That's okay, I'll buy my own ticket." He kept coming back, too. I was really glad to see the movie succeed.
1001 Nights ranked 5th at the box office in Japan for the whole year. The film earned around $900,000. That was a record amount for an animated feature made in Japan at the time. But despite the big success of 1001 Nights, Mushi Production was having difficulty making ends meet. The studio had to support a large number of staff as it tried to survive the increasingly fierce competition in the TV anime industry. Tezuka took over the company's entire debt and stepped down as president at the age of 42. And 2 years later, in 1973, Mushi Production went out of business. Tezuka had spent more than 10 years exploring the possibilities of animation. His efforts helped nurture many artists. Eiichi Yamamoto went on to create Space Battleship Yamato. Gisaburo Sugi directed Touch.
南はたっちゃんからもっと他にもらいたいものがあるから。
And Yoshiyuki Tomino wrote and directed Mobile Suit Gundam.
自分自身の若さゆえの過ちというものを。
They had all struggled alongside Tezuka and learned many things at Mushi Production. And they helped build the foundation for the ever-growing popularity of anime. Even after Mushi Production went bankrupt, Tezuka's passion for animation never faded. 2 years before he passed away, he created one final work. Titled Legend of the Forest, it's the product of the ideas he had accumulated over the previous 10 years. The animals move smoothly in full animation, just like in Disney movies. But the humans who destroy the forest are depicted using Tezuka's limited animation. The film ends with a battle scene. Here's how Tezuka described his love of animation in his late years.
ディズニーに対するのめり込みもあって、フルアニメっていうのは素晴らしいもんだという頭がありますからね。実際にそういう虫プロスタイルのアニメーションというものに関しての、僕自身の若干の欲不満みたいなのもあるんですけど、しかもそのディズニースタイルというものを僕は支持しながら、やっぱりそういう新しいアニメのスタイルの模索みたいなものも支持したいという僕自身の気持ちの総括ですね。
Tezuka died before completing Legend of the Forest. A brilliant artist, his dream was animation, and he kept chasing it to the end. He was never able to fully realize that dream, but it's one that's still alive, passed down by the many creators who continue to follow in his footsteps.